This is a Winchester Model 94. By the serial number we know that this gun was made in 1953. If you take a look at the stock has absolutely this thick, goopy stuff. You can actually take it off with your fingernail. The quality of the gun itself has some light pitting of rust. Not a lot of rust, but there is this very thick dirt and oil throughout the gun, and whoever owned it back in 1953 liked to do things like put white pinstriping on here that you can see. This is actually, you can just kind of peel that off, but that's going to take some work. There is rust on some parts of the gun. There's definitely rust on the base plate as well. But it is a 1953 vintage Model 94, and because of that, it is my intention over the next couple of months to take this gun and to completely strip it down, remove all the stock, the wood, and get rid of the scope. Although I may decide to return a scope to this gun some later date. During the rehab of this gun, the scope will be taken down. I do not intend to videotape point by point each step, but I will videotape different interim portions as we get to it. So we can take a look at some progress as we take this gun apart. And as I said, take care of some of this really gunky oil on this thing. So I'm viewing this gun as a complete takedown and redo and a rebuild. So wish me luck. Here we are with the strap removed and the scope taken off. These came off relatively easily, but here you can possibly get a shot. When I talk about how gunked up this gun is, you can just see that gunk in there. It's just really bad. And we'll continue to do the work. We have the stock off, and we've been removing the front screws. I removed the base plate from the stock, and the white pinstriping is off. Here we have the gun pretty much broken down. Be continuing breakdown to get further. Well, I use this product here called Super Clean, and just using that, it's a degreaser. The wood stock, just trying to take the grease off the wood, most of the finish came just pulled directly off the stock completely. And so at this stage, the next step for this stock, I wanted to see what it would look like after you degreased it, so I wanted to see that first, and this definitely confirms that our next step will be to take a stripper. This is a water-based stripper, and we will apply that with a just a kind of a rag application, and then we'll scrub that off. It's a water-based stripper that we can wash down the stock. You want to use a water base because it's one that won't go after the wood fibers themselves, and you want to be very careful going after the wood here. There's the paint stripper on the product, bubbling up. Just sit on there about a good 30 minutes, and we'll get all that stock cleared up. Here's the wood stock. It's been stripped down, and we're letting it dry. And when it completely dries out, we'll be ready for doing some stain work on it. Right now, those little extra dark spots you see on there is just water. but all the varnish and finish has been removed. So when this dries, the whole thing will dry a very light color, and we'll be using some Minwax gunstock stain on this. Well, here's the wood stock after it's completely dry, after having been stripped. Has a little bit of coloration variation, but that's okay, that'll all look good. And here on the front handle, what we have right here, there is a very small wood nick, and we're going to try to I'm going to see if I can sand that smooth. I was originally thinking of putting some wood filler in there, but I thought it might be shallow enough that we could just take that with a little bit of sanding paper and just smooth it so that it's not a rough edge. Kind of leave a little dent there, but it won't be too bad. Now, what we're going to be using on this is we're going to use this product here. We're going to use Minwax wood finish. It's a stain that also penetrates and seals. And if you'll notice, the finish is actually called gunstock. So, and if you take a look at that color, that gunstock color, onto the natural gunstock, that should look very good. And we're going to do about 3 to 4 coats of this. And after we're done with that, we're going to finish it off with Minwax's clear satin polyurethane, which is a fast drying. And we will put probably 3 to 4 thin coats of this product on here when we're done. This is the results after a single coat. I have to admit that I'm very, very satisfied with the depth of color and the overall grain on the wood. Just really popped out there. We'll be taking another look at this tomorrow after it dries, but so far it may very well be I may not need to put a second coat on here, although the front's a little lighter than the back. I may want to do a second coat on just that, but like I said, we'll see how this dries tomorrow. Here we are after putting 1 coat of Minwax satin polyurethane on. The stock is really starting to pop, and very shortly we'll be working on the metal.
Well, here's the completed wood stock after having had 4 coats of polyurethane. Altogether, I only had to put 1 coat of stain on the buttstock, but the foregrip did take 2 coats, and I think the color came out very well. And with the 4 coats of polyurethane, looks very nice. I'm very pleased with these results. Very deep color, very deep nice gloss. So next week we start working on the metal. The next stage that we're working on right now is taking some of the smaller parts and getting the rust off of it. We're using our product here called Evapor Rust, and Evapor Rust is somewhat famous for being able to be somewhat rather non-aggressive. However, I have noticed that in this case, where the Evapor Rust just soaking for a few hours has completely taken down even some of the black off the smaller pieces. But the butt plate had been somewhat rusted, and this has completely removed the rust in about 9 hours. So it's a good safe product for that, and we're working on individual rust on some of the components now. Yes, it's in the kitchen. The reason it's in the kitchen, by the way, is this product has to be used at a temperature of 65 degrees or higher, and the garage right now is a little too cold for that.
This is the finished product. A pristine 1953 Model 94. If you remember, we had the bump in the stock that I said I was going to sand out, and we have completely sanded it out. Didn't have to use any filler at all. One disappointment was found when we were taking the gun apart and reassembling it. The lifter, the original lifter in the gun, was bent, and we had to replace that. That was not a big deal, but I want to give gratitude to my friend Chuck, who is a much more accomplished gunsmith than myself, who helped me with that. And we have since put some 30-30 rounds through this, and the piece has very sweetly fired. Here we see the buttstock, if you remember, that was all rusted. And we really didn't re-blue the metal at all. You don't want to touch the metal, but just by cleaning, getting the metal all cleaned here, got it finished. The one thing we did do is we did do some re-bluing on these. If you remember, these came almost completely shiny in the rust cleaning operation. Here's a look at the internals of the gun. If you remember how gunked up that was, that is right now, I would describe that as an almost new Model 94. Very pleased with the outcome on this project, and just give you an idea of what you can do if you just find an old piece in a gun shop, and what you can do with it with a little TLC. Just for contrast, I have the gun sitting next to a more modern manufactured Model 94. The top one, that is uncocked, was manufactured in 1974, and the bottom one is our 1953 model. And if you know anything about 1974 model guns, they were not manufactured the same quality as the 1953 gun. But there we have two Model 94s side by side.